Hello, my friend. I'm so happy to have you for this special episode. It is part two of our protest behavior series. And I just wanted to name that it's Labor Day. It is a fully inclusive episode, all of its own. You don't have to go back to the brief 10-minute episode from last Wednesday. If you want to, you can get your primer. We just talked about how sometimes people in relationships mean very well to show up with kindness and love, but then often if we don't share what's really going on with the hurts underneath, we can, in moments of distress, react in rage or in passive aggressiveness. And so today we're talking a little more in depth about when those protest behaviors show up and what we can do about them when they do. So I'm so happy you joined me. Like I said, it's Labor Day. I don't want you to have too much emotional labor. So that is what we're working on together. We have had a fun weekend. My son and I, some of you I know that we are studying our King Arthur series. And so we are having fun having gone to medieval times this past weekend. And something I always wanted to take my kid to. I'm so glad he gets to go during this series. So almost like Lord of the Rings vibes, right? With the old chivalry codes. And we were reading Chaucer this week and all these fun things. So I'm grateful to be getting to take a break today too with you. And I hope wherever you're at, wherever you're learning with me, that you're doing well. Before we get started here, just a reminder, our Enneagram Relationship Intensive is really beautiful times. I'm so glad to say that first and foremost, but it is actually getting towards the end of the early bird special. So if you're listening live, then make sure you sign up by tomorrow so that you can get the discount. And then also know that you are in for 6 weeks plus an extra week of deep diving with me intensively. I have a few spots left. Thank you so much to Mark and Sue for sharing their beautiful letter. Also to Ken and Kathleen for giving an audio commercial for us. It was so beautiful to work with you all, and I cannot wait for the next group. We are doing just me and you guys so that you can have your privacy, which is what we discussed and discovered we needed last time. Now, also, I want to let you know that something that is in the works for those who are counselors and coaches amongst you, the AACC conference is coming up, and I will be there Thursday, September 25th. So if you want to say hi, I already have an E&M friend who is joining. I can't wait to see her, but I just wanted to let you know that is in Tennessee, and I can't wait to see you there in Opryland if you are an AACC member or a student member or just want to continue your counseling and coaching education. So many people are going to be there, and I'm heading up just an Enneagram and relationships, brief presentation, but I am also then moving on to something else we're doing as a family. So I'm really excited to get to be there. So I hope to see you there. I wanted to make sure you knew that. And also just make sure that if I've got you in that announcement space and you're like, okay, I'm here for the actual pod, take a deep breath and allow yourself to know we have not only this pod, but one more that I was just on, the Allender Center pod. And that is also in the show notes for you. If you're like, I want a double pod today, I have no work today, then I can assure you, you have even more because I was just on the Allender Center pod. Love sharing about Enneagram and marriage there. So let's talk about how breaking the cycle is so important with these protest behaviors, whatever your cycle is, and how to stop them, most importantly, from destroying your marriage. So, really, reminder that when you have this unmet need, you often protest instead of asking directly, right? So that behavior creates some sort of a distance. Sometimes it's that distance of like, I don't want to talk to you because you just ignored me, or you are actively showing your partner you don't want to talk because you're the one ignoring, or you're showing that you are yelling and now they can't really get any information from you except that you don't like them. And basically, the partner starts to react to your behavior, not the need. You get lost in the meta narrative of what happened. And we need that original need to be really met because that's really the issue, and we've lost sight of that. And then unfortunately, things don't stay the same size most of the time either, right? Just like when you have a wound, it festers. Ew, I hate that word. But protest behavior really then intensifies too. So if we were a little bit mad or aloof, now we're sulking. Or if we were really filled with the rage and started to get an attitude in our tone, now we're yelling. And so now both partners are in this dance of this counter protest, and then your behaviors trigger each other and the cycle escalates. And so we want you to know this is obviously a no-go because we don't want your safety and your emotional safety, especially both, to erode. And of course, then we know connection becomes impossible. So if I tell you at that point, oh, have a date night, you're like, I don't even want to see this person, right? And sometimes for those moments we say movie date. So, but hopefully you're not even going to be there after this episode. You can even find better ways to de-escalate. So want you to know that when you see your own protest behavior, it can help you to be the one to stop the cycle first, right? So if you're a type 2 and you become martyrish, oh, I always do everything right, and you're protesting, your type 5 partner might withdraw even more. And that increases your martyrdom and it creates this escalating cycle. So I think it's important that you notice that when you are just responding to the behavior of the other and getting defensive instead of curious, that's going to happen every time. So what we really want to do is help you not to make the protest behavior about yourself, but more look at what is the unmet need here that my partner's trying to tell me. And I want your unmet needs to get talked about too, but it's never going to happen if you're just out there defending or criticizing. These are part of what John Gottman, number one marital researcher in the world, calls the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Those are two of them. And so we just know that it's not going to do either of you any good. Needs are not going to be met if you're coming in with defensiveness or criticism. But just so you know, I'm going to go over the types now, and then we are going to give some more tips after. So listen for your types and then come back for the end of the episode. But I do want you to know what I'm going to be sharing afterwards is just some building patterns for all of us to use. And you might even hear, oh, this would be good for type 2, etc. But I want you to know I'm sharing some things for all of us too. So listen for your type and then come back at the end. So we're going to start with our body types. Our eights first, often, of course, grew up in an environment where vulnerability felt dangerous. And maybe they had to be strong for others or protect themselves from chaos. And they learned if I'm not in control, bad things happen. And so the childhood message for them was often the power equals safety. And so their adult protest can be about bulldozing when they feel powerless or dismissed. I'm just going in with what I need. But the healing insight is that true strength includes vulnerability. And I think you heard the emotion in my voice because I was working on that with an 8 client this week, and it was pivotal. It's through the whole family system. And what I said to that client, and I'll say it to you, even 1% matters. So maybe you can't do it all, but 1% better, right? So the nines in the body groupings often grew up in families where conflict felt scary or that their voice didn't matter. Maybe you were overlooked or your needs caused problems and you learned my needs don't matter or they disrupt the peace. And so the message you got inadvertently was harmony at any cost. But your adult protest behavior often looks like passive resistance when you're feeling unheard versus voice. And of course, your healing insight is exactly that. Your voice matters, and conflict can create closeness. When we think about making peace, we realize that peace comes any system, like let's say you're even cleaning your pool out. I don't have a pool. I do not want the chaos of a pool or a pool person in my home. But this is a self-proclamation here. But many of you do, or you have a pool out your backyard or something, and you know that you have to keep scooping out if you want to enjoy the luxurious time together or the hot tub, whatever it is, it needs treatments. And that's the same with nines. You can't just have like, we don't do anything. You have to do the work. You have to actively swirl things up for a bit in order to come back to the beautiful desires and placid time. Okay, now the type ones, you often grew up with high expectations of criticism. You may have felt very conditional love, like you weren't good enough. You learned I must be good and perfect to be loved. And your love requires perfection could be that thought you have. And of course, criticism when feeling unappreciated could be the thing that you do. And then also the insight is you're lovable just as you are. And so are the people around you at work, at home, and even the extended family who might have been the ones to make you feel this way because everyone has a starting point. So it's important that you know everyone is loved exactly as they are. No one is perfect, and you are loved even though you're not perfect. That's huge. And that's important for you to remember inside of these protest behaviors that you think it's going to be so good if you criticize, and it's actually going to take you farther away. And there are ways of walking through, which we're going to talk about Wednesday on the podcast. We're going to have the wonderful family life radio hosts on, Dave and Ann Wilson, to talk to us about what to do instead. So stick around for that. But let's move to our heart types. Our twos often grew up feeling loved for what they did, not who they were, and their value came from taking care of others. They learn I'm only valuable if I'm needed or being taken care of. And so the childhood message is you have to give to receive love. And the adult protest behavior would be something to the effect of martyrdom when feeling unloved. I help everybody, I do everything. So why can't I just get some love back? And the healing insight for you is you're worthy of love without earning it or forcing it on others. And so that really, that groundedness and confidence in who you are and who you were created to be actually really helps your partner to see you better and to admire you more versus feeling like you're suffocating them or manipulating in any way. Now, the type three often grew up with praise for achievements, not just for being yourself, right? And many emotions were dismissed, or you felt like you had to perform a lot. And I'm only valuable if I succeed. You might remember my sister Abby coming on the podcast as a three and saying our dad was like, if you get an A minus, why do you even care? I didn't quite have that. I feel like I always said I wasn't as good. You might have heard me say I wasn't as good as a high schooler. I got my kind of glow up in college. And then what was so funny is I was noticing that I was like in the top 12 of my high school of like, say, 200 kids. But I tell you what, growing up in that family, I felt like I was not like I was like I must be like bottom feeding. Like and it made me feel sad too in that three space that I was like, I mean, obviously so grateful for what I did get, but like many of you actual threes grew up in spaces where that was really strong and that's really hard because that was my perception is oh, I didn't do good till college. And it's like, Krista, you weren't that bad off, right? Like so I think it's important that you notice what was the system I was in. Maybe I did really well and I got finished through the swim team or the volleyball team. And then, maybe I wasn't at the top, but I did well. And so just knowing as a three, like you don't have to be, like we said to ones, you don't have to be perfect to be loved. The adult protest for you is, of course, the workaholism that comes from that. Yes, I do have to be loved and do this. And your spouse is like, I'm so mad because you're always doing everything for others. And what about me? And your healing insight is your worth exists outside of your performance. And that is key. And oh my gosh, I could talk all day about each of these, but I just wanted to name that for our threes. Now, the fours, you often felt like something was missing growing up, and maybe you felt different or that you had to compete for attention. And fours need time and attention. You're hearing my angst because I just feel that I was feeling that for all of our fours, and they feel like I must be special to matter. I know my type four right now is in the midst of a proctored at home but proctored GRE graduate requisite exam, and it was just interesting watching her study because she's so relational. So she kept being like, let's all do studying together. And just, there's this desire for your people to understand you and for time together. And there's emotional drama that can come up for the protest if they're feeling unseen because they're heart types and they need love. And yet we know our four is withdrawal. But that's okay if there's a healthy back and forth because the healing for four comes when know they matter without having to be dramatically different or even the center of attention. So that's huge. You are loved, even if sometimes you have to do your own work because you can go to that negative two space. So that's a good space for us to check out. Okay, now the five, of course, grew up feeling kind of overwhelmed by others' needs or intruded upon, or just felt sometimes weaker, and maybe privacy wasn't respected, or they felt depleted with family, and they learned people drain me. So, of course, the childhood message was protect your energy at all costs. And then the adult protest behavior would be really just completely really getting away and trying to get away more and more. And when you feel like emotions are invaded, forget about it, really getting away. But remember, sharing energy can actually replenish you. And that is something I've certainly had to learn in my five space because I love that five space. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just want to go away and be by myself, but near my family. And I'm like, I need to engage them. I love them. And when I do, when I really do, it feels good. So I hope you'll hear me when you hear me say that. I get it, but it really blesses you to go back in. Um, Our sixes, of course, these guys, you guys grew up with probably inconsistent support or had to scan for danger or had authority figures telling you you can't trust yourself, you're unreliable, and you learned I can't trust support will be there. And so the childhood message is always be prepared for abandonment or that fight for abandonment. And the adult protest can be anxiety spirals when feeling insecure, which is like almost all the time, sometimes for sixes. So the healing insight is I can find trust. I can find good self-soothing while maintaining healthy discernment. I can allow myself to do good planning, but I do not need to step into this hyper vigilant state of always planning, controlling, and protecting. That is not your work to do, and you might need some really good deep breaths there to help you to understand that. That's something that I need also sometimes with my 6 week. Okay, the sevens often grew up needing to avoid painful emotions or family problems. Maybe they were the happy one who kept spirits up or pain wasn't allowed. They learned difficult emotions are dangerous. Oh my gosh, I could talk about that all day. I have talked about that all day on this podcast. And so the childhood message is keep things light and positive. Don't go deep. Certainly don't share emotions. In the adult protest is just what I explained. I love that 5 space of escapism when feeling trapped, sad. And so what I do is, I take emotional time in the morning to help heal that. And I can still maintain my joy because I use that really good formula that lets me lament and then find my time of just praising and being grateful. And then my time of planning. Now, what do I need to do? But I also have a mini practice where I allow myself to notice myself slipping into gluttonous behaviors of any kind. And then I say, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And what are you feeling about, right? Like, what are you feeling underneath this right now? Before you, let's say it was a food thing, and we use food for like any gluttonous thing, but like could be food. You're heading into the pantry. You're not hungry. Why are you there? Noticing, oh, I feel sad about this, or I feel angry, and then allowing yourself to say, what could I do about that? That's healthy. And then when I do that, I actually had something like that with an actual pantry the other day. And then I was like, I'm just so like want my own space, like that 5, that sometimes I can just go 7, 5, 7, 5. And then I said, I need to go sit by my husband on his like side while we're watching the show as a family. And just being there helped me a lot versus like, oh, I'm good. I like my alone time. And just going and being together really helped address, well, you're sad because you're lonely and you keep making yourself more lonely. So just allow yourself to notice, what am I doing? And allow yourself, now you're back to joy. It doesn't mean you stay in the emotion forever, but it leads you. Okay. Now, what we need to do is look at a couple more things, as I said, just as we close, how we can create safety. And I want you to like think of all of us as having all the types within us because we do, right? Like all of us have an inner critic and a perfectionist. All of us have a giver and we can manipulate. All of us have an on and on and on, all the best and the worst. Now, maybe it's a small part of us, but we all have the capacity, again, for achievement or could be puffed up with vanity. These are human things and we want all the best, not the worst. And we want to also have that fundamental attribution error of thinking we're all the best and not any of the worst. And our spouse is the opposite. And I don't want you to do that today. I just want you to acknowledge with a deep breath, there, but for the grace of God go I. We all have all these things, but what tips can I take with me? I've already given you some if you were able to just now listen to the types, but really let's allow ourselves to grow with just a few more of those tips. So first, I want you to respect you and your partner's needs for autonomy and choice. So you may say, I have the best formula for you. I'm going to get in there and do this. But the truth is, this is not your work to do. Your work to do is to take care of you, to be monitoring the things that we just said, and to allow your spouse that same autonomy. I also want you to appreciate your spouse's efforts without trying to change everything about them. And I also want you to allow yourself to validate your emotions and your experiences so that you aren't just running and in numb mode, but that you're actually saying, okay, I'm tired because I just did XYZ. I'm allowed a break. And I had something like that today where I was even going, oh my gosh, like I did this and that and the other, but my nieces were the one to reach out in the family chat, and I should have reached out in the family chat. And it was like, no, because you were getting Hannah ready for GRE and you were waking Melody up and getting Jack started on his work, and you were seeing that client in the morning and you were sending that email off. And it was like, you know what? Give your your nieces a chance to do their work. Like they wanted to bless the family, let them do it. And so even I had that too moment of I have to be the giver. And I want you to understand what are your experiences and how are they lifting you up? What is your inner critic saying? You could hear mine was saying you should have done it all. And just allow yourself to have some grace, which is what I did. And then I actually used the verse that my niece had shared with the family. And I was like, oh, I needed that verse. And I told them all, I need that verse. But they do that every day in our extended family chat. And I'm realizing these children are blessing our whole family. And so, what I want to also say is, you already heard me say if you were listening for 7, but I'll say it again in case you weren't. Allow some space for validating your emotions, even just a quick check-in. It does not mean I want you saying my feelings lead the way on everything, but you do need to know what they are. And so allowing yourself a moment to just check in, wait a second, something happened, or maybe it didn't even. I think probably usually something does happen, but we're not always aware that it does. And we just immediately, some little thought will come in our mind and something little will happen and we'll think about something. And humans scan negatively, right? So then all of a sudden we're like, I'm sad, but I'm not even going to process that. I'm just going to do this other thing to cope with it. And it could be turn the radio up, turn some AC/DC on. It could be allowing yourself to hopefully not but drive fast. It could be smoking, whatever it is, it's something not helpful for you if you're not processing what can I do that what happened and what can I do that actually would be healthier. Is otherwise you're probably just going to go into an unhealthy behavior of some kind. And for you, it could be something as small as gossip or something as more, it feels minimal to go back into work mode. But then your family notices, where did you go all day? Well, you never did your emotional processing. You never asked, what do I really need right now? That was just a tough moment. And it could even be just a deep breath. Could be, I need a call with a friend later, but allowing yourself to allow in whatever it is that's needed after you've processed emotion and experience. Now, allow yourself to give your spouse and yourself processing time and space, because something I was just talking about with a client as they were starting out a new semester was I just really didn't want them to lose processing space, because you just heard me say all these things like you need to figure out what you were feeling and doing. And if you don't have any space in your day for that, you won't. And everyone deserves a bathroom break. Everyone deserves time to pause or take a 5-minute cat nap or prayer time. But oftentimes humans are so busy in our type 3 culture of, like you heard me say, I should be doing more. And in fact, sometimes it's less. And so just allow yourself that reminder. And thank goodness I do have that planned into my day with my morning routine, but also just little spaces that I often take through the day that I just can tell I need it. So I want you to try for that. And yesterday for me, it was like a 5-minute walk. And that was another space I needed just to do a little processing time. Now, you've also heard me say, don't try to take advantage of that. Like, oh, I need 4 hours every day to do that by myself. That is not necessary for most people most days. So make sure you stay safe, but also stay social and really allow yourself not to give your spouse and yourself too much emotional intensity all at once. So as we land today, I want to remind you especially of that as much as I want you to be able to know that we don't want these toxic protest behaviors to go unseen. And when we don't want you to be in a toxic protest behavior space, but we don't want your need underneath to be unseen. You already heard me say some of this you're doing with God, with yourself, and a lot of it is done there. But what's left after that? What can you do with those Enneagram pieces we talked about? What can you do about those general pieces? Can you get a little processing time and mental space carved in again? And then you'll feel better and you won't have as many heights with your spouse, but you'll be able to talk. Can you validate their emotions and experiences too? Yeah, I hear you. That makes sense to me versus criticizing and defensiveness. Can you allow some autonomy and choice so that they don't feel controlled? And I'm going to add one more is I truly do not believe that people grow when we condemn them first. I truly don't want you condemning at all, but like sometimes there's a behavior where like, I need to condemn this behavior. Even if you do, I want you to first come in with love, not just 1 or 2 points about how much you love your spouse, but I want you to lay it on thick. Let them know how many things you love, give it 5 full minutes, and then come in with your need because nobody can really hear you if you're just like, by the way, I love that you did the dishes, but I also want to tell you your whole demeanor at work is terrible. Or, I love that you mowed the lawn for me, but you're not doing it for me in the bedroom. Like, this is not the healthy way to go about a behavior. When you talk, I want you to come in seasoned with love, with grace. We're going to talk about this on Wednesday's podcast more with the leaders of Family Life Ministries. And they're just so good at telling us what went wrong when there was a spirit of criticism over their marriage. So I cannot wait for you to get more of that. But for today, I just want to remind you that breaking these cycles is not about perfection, it's about progress. Allow yourself to think on a 1% better that you could do right now as a result of this podcast. I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. And just remember, these protest behaviors are real legitimate needs underneath. So don't forget that. Now, if you want more pod time with me today, head over for a fun conversation with Rachel Clinton Chen and I on the Allender podcast. It is in the show notes. Head over if you need a deep dive with me for the relationship intensive. I'm so excited to meet you. And make sure that you have a wonderful Labor Day. Maybe I'll even see you at the AACC conference coming up in September. That's the American Association of Christian Counselors. And I'll see you Wednesday. Otherwise, have a great day, guys. Bye bye.